I'm Madison Miner with Protect Our Kids, Say What podcast here on YouTube, and I am here with a good friend of mine, Temecula Valley Unified School District Board of Education trustee, Joseph Komrosky. Joseph, welcome to Say What podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me, Madison.
Yeah, thanks for being on and joining us today, and for all you do for kids, protecting them and protecting parental rights down there in Temecula.
Amen.
So I have a couple questions for you today. What is your history? What got you involved with the school board in the first place?
Well, I'm a tenured professor. I teach at Mount San Antonio College, and I also taught, I still do, I adjunct at Cal State University San Marcos. You might say 2.5, 3 years ago, the numbers aren't super clear, but I'd say 2.5 years ago before I campaigned, I was working at a Salt and Light ministry through my church, and I was trying to figure out where to plug into, and I, just basically fasted and prayed and said, God, what do you want me to do right now? I was trying to teach Christian apologetics at my church. They were backlogged for COVID ministries, So anyways, long story short, I ran, one of the guys at Salt and Light said, hey, I'm going to go to a PAC meeting in Marietta. And I was like, what's a PAC? He said, Political Action Committee. I'm like, well, what's that? And he goes, it's related to school board and city and, people running for these positions at election. I said, okay. So I went, and that's the first time I ever met Tim Thompson, the pastor, through IU Family PAC. And he was trying to find candidates for city and school board to run. I think there was 12 positions for Temecula, Marietta, Lake Elsinore, and Menifee. And I thought, wow. I was very impressed. It was a big house. Over 100 people there, maybe 150 ex-senators, congressmen, I thought, city officials. And so I was listening, and they were talking about, the sexualization of our youth and CRT being in the schools. And I'm neutral, and I'm listening, and I'm like, okay, well, what evidence do they have? And, they were giving examples, and I thought, well, I'm starting to see CRT, these anti-racist pledges going on at Mount San Antonio, because I'm a union member there. I'm a department rep, and they're asking us to vote in this anti-racist pledge. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Why are we doing that? Do we have any racist policies at our school? Right. And I wasn't getting any clear answers. So long story short, I made serious connections like, well, if this is happening at my school, and part of this is infiltrating at the K through 12, and I'm asking God, like, what do you want me to do? And I thought, that's it, the Esther moment, for such a time as this. So it was kind of funny. Tim was saying, hey, if you're interested in running for city or school board, fill out this little card, or if you guys are interested in donating money or in prayer, just getting community involvement. And long story short is I raised my hand and I started, asking some questions. And one of them was, what are the time commitments on this if I were to run? And, I didn't think I was going to run. And then right then and there, a lady in the audience said, I'll vote for you. And long story short, after that meeting ended, I was surrounded by people. And then it was like, I think God funneled me through. My wife was all on board. So that's how it all started. And it's kind of funny because before that, I didn't have any significant involvement. I didn't really know what a school board was, what they did. I mean, I heard about it. We voted people in. But it wasn't until that moment where it became clear, like, oh, okay, these are governing officials. They control what happens in the district. So I wasn't looking to be a politician or a public servant in that capacity. I just walked into it, and God led me there.
Yeah, and you were voted in back in the same year that I was, right? 2022? Yeah,
in fact, I met you at the PRI conference in San Diego, and it's like, you kind of huddle around fellow Christian-minded conservative, people that have conservative traditional family values, and you're like, all right, we're going to do this? Well, what the heck are we doing? Like, nobody knows. You're going into this territory, and yeah, that's how it all started.
Well, and shortly after I was elected, they had already started the recall on myself when I was in Orange Unified. And I know that they came and targeted you with that same recipe that they wrote in Orange Unified down in Temecula. What happened with the recall down in Temecula Valley?
Well, to set the context, the first night we got elected in, me, Danny, and Jen, we banned CRT. Well, first we condemned racism and then banned CRT, saying that it was a form of racism, reverse racism. And so that kind of, we came in flipping tables, and we didn't mind doing that because we're like, look, we're not elected to represent the district or the union or special interest groups. We were elected to represent the values of the parents of the community. So for us, it was a no-brainer. But what that did is that it lit up the grid, you might say, where high-level politicians and teachers' unions and all that became interested. So within a few months, they were already setting the recall stage. And like you said, and then not too long after, the teachers union sued us because they, We refused to pass the TCI curriculum because me and Danny called Harvey Milk a pedophile and said, look, man, we don't have a problem with the curriculum, but there wasn't enough parental involvement with it. And I think that's Education Code 60002. But it all became, for the leftists, it all became about us attacking Harvey Milk. So part of the lawsuit was, you must pass the TCI policy, and then you must rescind CRT, because they said we were causing irreparable harm to kids, students in our district. And it's kind of funny, and your viewers got to know this. Then when we passed the TCI curriculum, then they added on the parental rights. When we passed that, it was like an ongoing lawsuit. Just like, okay, you guys did that, now we're going to add
that right in there.
Add right in there. So that became, for them, one of the justifying moments where they're saying, hey, Joseph, Danny, and Jen are dividing our community with their chaos and their extremist views. And here we are like, yeah, I don't think so. We're representing traditional family values. So, yeah, that's kind of how it all went down. And like you, the teachers union, they weaponized the school district against governing board members that were elected by the community that have the majority of conservative traditional family values. So what I tell people is really what happened was the leadership of the teachers union weaponized the school district, not just against the board members, against the community. That's a real big 100-foot view.
Yeah.
It's like your vote doesn't count, people, because the teachers union, they're gonna push back as hard as they can.
Well, and we caught on video here in Orange Unified, we caught on video the political arm of the California Teachers Association on video saying, they had a representative that came down and said, we're going to use the funds in ABC, which is their political arm, and we're going to funnel that into Orange Unified Educators Association, which is our teachers union here locally in our school district. Yeah. And I got to imagine, I didn't see the contributions yet for your recall, but I got to imagine there's a similar footpath of tracks that kind of replicate with that recipe that the teachers union used against you as well.
Yeah, in fact, I think CTA donated to our teachers union like over $26,000 with my name on it for a recall. I think they donated over $70,000, but the teachers union's PAC used, I think, $26,000. I right now the numbers are in my phone, but I'm on the Zoom. Yeah, you can't make this up. And you're like, what's CTA? You tell the parents, well, it's one of the largest unions in the United States, California Teachers Association, and then they get, millions of dollars funneled to them from God knows where, progressive liberals, and then you get NEA. So again, special interest stacked upon special interest, stacked upon special interest,
right,
coming from members. Right.
And who are you? You're a professor, you're a dad, you're a husband, you're a community member, but this is the kind of reality that's happening, especially here in California with school board members, is these ordinary people are running for these positions because we simply want to protect kids and parent rights. And these unions are clearly perturbed by it and coming after us. And I don't know, will you stop? Will you stop doing what you're doing?
No, that's almost the laughing joke is absolutely not. I mean, I have a warrior spirit. I'm not going to stop protecting the innocence of children and empowering the parents. And I just laugh at it. When they laugh at me, I laugh at them. Because, this isn't me. This is God. This is Jesus Christ leading his kingdom to protect children. And that's going back to that Myriad of PAC meeting. I don't necessarily hear from God all the time in some audible voice. Some people think God talks to them every day. I'm not like that. I don't get these clear messages. But that night, it was very clear that God was asking me. He was telling me and asking me at the same time, I want you to protect my children. So I know that because I was fasting and praying. So it was very clear. This isn't because I have ambitions on being a politician, nothing like that. In fact, I wanted to relax and chill out. And I was done with my PhD, play some soccer, have fun. God's like, oh, that's cute. I got another plan for you, though. So, yeah.
So you were successfully recalled the same right after me. Wasn't that summer of 2024 that you were recalled?
Yeah, and what happened was they targeted me, Danny, and Jen, all three of us. Well, then Danny eventually resigned as a board member because he was getting attacked so viciously at his job. And let me just back up. There was, I'm going to be making a video about this later, today or tomorrow, I'm putting that out, but there were PTA members in South Temecula. They organized an attack against me and Danny. Wow. One member said, hey, we're going to go after Joseph's job at Cal State San Marcos and Mount San Antonio. Wow. And then somebody else said, yeah, and also Danny has Disney contracts because he was a metal fabrication iron workers union. He was a member of that. So basically they attacked both of us And they went after Danny's contracts, and he started having such a significant loss of money in contracts. His ability to provide for his family was just a nail in the coffin. He was like, that's it.
Yeah.
So he resigned. Then they had a choice. Do they continue to go after me and Jen? And they said, now let's isolate it. Let's go after the board president, Joseph. So that's kind of and then it became easier for them to focus on one board member. With you had you and Rick Ledzema. It was like they were going after two of you.
Right. Yeah, Rick and I. So you got recalled. And what went through your head when you got recalled? What was your next step? Was it, okay, I'm just going to sit back and enjoy playing soccer and watching my kids? Or was it, all right, let's get back in the saddle?
Well, I told people, I go, well, if it's God's will and I'm recalled, I'm not going to fight against that. I mean, I'm done. He'll have other plans for me. Mm-hmm. But the one thing that really, because a couple of people were like, hey, you have to run again for the general election and this and that when Trump runs for president. And I thought, look, you got to be kidding me. Because you know this as well as I do. Campaigning is a lot of time and energy, and you sacrifice a lot of family time. And I've campaigned 3 times in 2 years.
Wow.
I mean, it's a lot of work. So the one thing that that became clear to me is that if it was a fair election, I'm totally good. But what was happening was the teachers union and the Temecula 1 PAC, where we are, it's a progressive liberal PAC, they were weaponizing the community. They were causing chaos, and they were basically saying that they were for parental rights. Wow. And they were causing confusion. So people were like, wait a minute, they're for parental rights, Dr. K is not. And so I just thought this is a disingenuous campaign ran off of deception, or like a deception campaign. Well, that is exactly what the teachers unions do. That's in their wheelhouse. They do it on purpose.
Right.
I had people going door to door saying, hey, we're the true conservatives and Komrosky's not. It was so mind-boggling.
I know. I hear you.
Yeah, totally. Not only that, I lost by 212 votes. In the last couple of weeks of my recall, I think the progressive liberals hit up a nursing home close to where I lived, and they were going in there and they got votes from people that were over 90. 2 people had dementia. They were in a dementia ward. Wow. So we could tell, like, look, I didn't think it was a fair campaign. Am I an election denier? I guess yes and no. It depends on how you frame this. But at the local election, I said, if people are tampering with our election, and we also knew for a fact that I don't want to go off too much on a tangent, but people have to know this. In the Riverside Register of Voters, we know that there were over 200,000 illegal or illegitimate voters on our voter roll that were used in the primary and my recall campaign. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to run again, because it was a deception campaign. And just to be clear, I don't think God called me away from what he originally called for me to do, is to protect, children and empower parents. And then I was reelected under the general, and it just proved the point. God never wanted me to be recalled. That was just the work of the enemy.
Yeah, I agree. When I was recalled as well, and when that happened, I would hear stories from conservatives saying, hey, we heard that you put pornography in our schools. We heard that you threw a party on district dollars and invited, all your friends to it. And we heard that Rick Ledesma, tried to kill somebody and now he's awaiting trial. Just so many lies were spread about us. And then the parent right advocate, they would go knocking door to door and they'd say, if you vote yes, that's keeping Madison Miner in the school board. And so you're right. It was complete chaos. They confused the voters, and they did it on purpose. They knew what they were doing. They knew that they were working this unfair cheating game, and there's no moral standard. There's nothing that they don't feel bad about how they did those things. And I'm sure it was the same for you as well down in Temecula.
Yeah, exactly what you said, like saying, hey, if you vote yes, it keeps them in. And I remember even I talked to Rick, and he said, yeah, he said they made up stories that he murdered somebody. And he's like, he goes, this is insanity. And I was laughing with him like, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah.
So there was one scenario. My wife was in a board meeting. She attends all of them to support me. And she got entangled with a liberal snare where she was talking with somebody, and then a student behind her didn't really like something and was, raising her voice. And my wife's like, can you keep your voice? Can you lower your voice a little bit?
Yeah.
And, later on, I told my wife she was walking into a setup. But anyways, the student eventually started crying. And then this progressive liberal lady, she's an antagonist towards us all. She basically framed my wife saying, Dr. K's wife is unhinged and the students are afraid to attend the board meetings. It got so nuts where, the student spotlights where they'd come and talk.
Yeah.
There was this big thing. And I just remember, like, this is so one of the things going out on videos was that Dr. K's wife was an alcoholic. She's an unhinged drinker yelling at the meeting, and Dr. K is abusive, and he beat his wife, and he broke her jaw. Like, all of this stuff is a lie.
Yeah.
And my wife's 20 years sober.
Wow. Yeah.
So, yes, like you're saying, they don't care if they lie. Their number one goal is to get you to resign. They don't care if you die or end up in jail. They don't care about any of that.
No, they're pretty heartless. I agree with you on that.
And when I say they, I mean the progressive liberals that attacked us. I don't mean, because there are, just to be clear, by the way, your viewers should know this. During my recall campaign, I had 2 gay Democrats donate $1,000 each to me, and they said, Joseph, we love what you're doing to protect the kids. This garbage doesn't need to be in the schools. Yeah. So make no misunderstanding when I say this. There are liberals, moderates, and conservatives that are all on the same page. It's not across the board where if you have liberal values, you're anti-traditional family values. No, there are many people that are saying, hey, we have a gay lifestyle. We do not want that imposed on these kids K through 12.
And I think you bring up such a great point because I believe there was a survey that said 70% of Americans believe that parents should have the right to parent their own children. So it's not, it's across party lines. It's across the aisle. It's not just left versus right. It's sincerely, it's a universal issue that parents should be able to protect their kids. And that's the bottom line that I think a lot of people forget about when they're going through these battles where they're saying, oh, well, but I'm a Democrat, so I can't vote for you. It's like, no, this is a parent right issue. This is not a Democrat versus Republican issue. You shouldn't have to worry about who sits on which side of the aisle when it comes to protecting kids, right?
Yeah, and just to empower Christians, the fifth commandment of the Bible, we can go back to Exodus 20. God literally says, honor your father and mother so that the days of your life will be prolonged. It's like God couldn't have been more intimate when he was speaking to Moses, the anthropomorphic, when he writes on the tablets with his fingers. We know that God doesn't have a finger, but the personal and the intimate setting there was God values parental rights long ago. This goes back to ancient. So eternally, God is commanding parents to be involved. Like, you can't forsake your children. Right. So that's what I tell the Christians is like, not just can we stand on education code and common sense traditional family values, God himself has declared this. And it's just, you got to be confident, stand up and fight for your kids. Because if parents don't, these politicians, they will not, and most people don't care. So it's really also a call for the parents to get engaged. Madison, like people like me and you were elected, right? But then when we're elected, the parents kind of check out and don't really care.
They pat you on the back and say, "Good job, go do it."
Yeah, they're like, "I need your help." They're like, "I'm too busy."
Yeah.
And then you get recalled, and you're like, "Dude, where were you?"
Elections have consequences. Come on. So you're recalled. These lawsuits, getting hit on you by the teachers union. How does that affect you? Does that make you turn around and just kind of put your tail between your legs? What was the result for you, Joseph, with the recall as well as the lawsuit from the teachers union?
You got to have a certain personality and be cut out for this, because when you start protecting the innocence of children, you're going to be attacked by the upper echelons of demonic activity. We're not just talking Ephesians 6. How about Daniel 10, when Daniel fasts and prays, in 21 days, the angel Gabriel was withheld by the prince of Persia. People should really look into this, but he was a principality. This is a regional demon. That's what we're dealing with. Not low-level demonic activity, but very high, significant stuff to where, for example, for me, they tried to strip me of my dissertation, my PhD, my tenured job. Wow. They went after my family, just on and on and on. And so the spiritual warfare is real, and it does impact your health and your family time. Right. So for me, I'm cut out, and I'm an ex-Army Ranger. I have military training. I just laugh at it. I'm like, well, that's just the way God made me, like an Elijah spirit. Right. But people take it seriously, like it does impact your health and your emotional well-being and your family time. Right. So for me, I just stay the course, because I always look back and I say, when people say, well, how did you get involved? How did you know? Because I fasted and prayed. Yeah. Therefore, there's no mistake that God wanted me to do this. He's communicating with me. So that's kind of how I relax. No matter how hard the attacks are, I know God's 20 steps ahead of me. Right. Now with the lawsuits, I don't take it personally. I do the best I can. I put my best foot forward, and I vote my values, and then God determines the outcome. Right. Yeah. Because this is about me, my flesh or pride or my ego or ambition. No. It's about God. And the second you let your flesh get in the way, you might as well resign. If that's a pattern, because the character defects, and you know this, they come out when somebody receives a position of power, then all of a sudden their true character comes out, especially in the dais.
Isn't that the truth? Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
So what would you say are the biggest threats to parental rights, especially in Temecula Valley for your constituents?
Lawsuits, PERB, this, quasi-judicial governing body who oversees. When the unions, for example, a lot of people don't know this, you pass a parental rights policy and a teacher has to do something outside of their contract or a flag policy, which we all pass.
Right.
And it requires the teachers to do something more. The unions could say, "Oh, you didn't negotiate with us. That's collective bargaining and impact bargaining, and we need to negotiate that." So so it was uncharted territory. We're like, we're not concerned with what the unions think. You can threaten us with your lawsuits all you want. We never anticipated Danny leaving to Texas or me getting recalled, or we would have appealed a PERB decision. And PERB said, you have to rescind your parental rights and your CRT. And we're like, no, go pound sand. Well, what we did is we hired advocates for faith and freedom to represent us pro bono, and lo and behold, and we were on OAN News, and this is like a big story.
Yeah.
But we had a Riverside Superior Court defend us because the teachers union said that we want you to grant a preliminary injunction against TVUSD. We want you to rescind the CRT and the parental rights policy. And the judge said no. And he said the parental rights policy is not discriminatory towards transgenders or anybody else. And then they said the CRT policy is not vague, but anybody of ordinary common sense could understand this. So the judge gave us legal precedent throughout the state, and we're like, yeah, like celebrating, right?
Right.
But so I would say it ends up in court. It ends up in court battles, and that's kind of what the enemy does, and they design it. They try to stall this out, strip you of your policy. So long story short, we have this awesome legal standing, whereas Escondido, Chino, Chico, they were dealing with federal lawsuits, ours was states. So we had the precedent. Well, when I campaigned and I got reelected and I sworn for my first meeting, we were going to talk about the PERB decision. And they said, basically, now you have to rescind your policies because now PERB gets involved and the union is screaming unfair labor practice. What didn't happen was advocates for faith and freedom, they were not notified. And keep in mind, they're representing our school district pro bono.
Right.
They were not notified by our district, and that falls on the head of the superintendent. And it was really, really sad. So we all voted to rescind the policies because we thought we were legally advised. You have no choice, at all. You have to do this. And so we did. And then Bob Tyler finds out, hold on, why didn't you guys notify me? You guys received bad legal advice. I say all that because it's really sad.
Yeah.
And we're still going to fight this and put forth the policies and renegotiate with the union. I actually really like our superintendent. I was, all three of us, me, Danny, and Jen, hired him. I like him, but that was a huge mistake that was made because that falls on his head. But like I said, I really like him. So
yeah,
I guess the parental rights is under combat from the enemy in various ways. Unions can sue. You got Bonta getting involved. And you just keep on fighting the good fight, saying, you know what, God will take care of this. And maybe Trump on high with his executive orders will help us. So I think we're in a good position. We're going to put forth another parental rights policy.
Perfect.
I advocated for using the new Chino policy with changing records that the parents be notified. It avoided AB 1955 language. So to answer your question, you got these assembly people in Congress at the state of California. They weaponize against local control by creating bills to strip us of the policies we vote in, which is you can't make this up.
Right.
So my thought was use the newer Chino policy and use the Placentia Yorba Linda policy that makes it about mental health. Combine them, put it on there. We're going to empower the parents once more. And then the flag policy, not a single word needs to be changed. And I'm a patriot. I love my country. So you just fight the good fight and continue to put them forward and work for the unions. You have to do it.
Yeah, I think that's right on. So what advice would you give to parents that are watching this? What are their rights and what can parents do to advocate for their children?
You have rights under California Ed Code. You also have rights as well. If you have the worldview of Christianity, which I do, we believe in theism, a personal God. Just like I said, you fifth commandment, God says, honor your father and mother. You start taking the parents away from these kids and you let the states try to run your family. Stand strong and be confident. There's no time for cowardice. You have to be courageous and take a stand. If parents don't press up against the district, don't talk in public comments, don't send those emails in saying, hey, my kid was exposed to X, Y, and Z, we won't know.
Right.
And I've heard things like parents are like, well, I want to get involved, but I'm afraid I'm going to get attacked. Again, cowardice. Stop doing that. If you get involved and you stand up and you try to protect your kids and you make this publicly known, guess what? It's infectious. Other parents see it and they're like, I'm going to do the same thing. And guess what? People like me and Madison get voted into these positions because it spreads all across the Southern California and the United States.
Right.
The parental rights movement is massive, massive. These days of wokeism, Madison, they are gone.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is the hypersensitivity to the LGBTQAI+, hypersensitivity to race and social justice. That's garbage. Now the hypersensitivity to academic excellence and common sense, those are where people are at now.
Yeah.
And so I say we're in a movement now that has even more momentum than it did 2 years ago when me and you first got elected.
Yeah, I agree with you completely.
So stay the course, be in prayer, and fight.
Yeah. So real quick, and then we'll wrap it up. But what's next for you in Temecula Valley? What's the next goal that you have that you want to be able to either pass or push in Temecula Valley?
Focusing on parental rights and the flag policy, getting those back on. For me, just now making sure that the district does what the law of the land is. When the governing board votes things in by the majority of the board, some members of the district might not enforce it or might not be supportive of the board or some rogue teachers. So my job now is just to relax a little bit, focus on visiting school sites, getting math scores and reading writing scores raised. And I'm in an accountability and goals subcommittee. So that's huge. But here's another thing. Ethnic studies. AB 101, the state demanded that we have an ethnic studies curriculum. So me and Mrs. Wiersma are in subcommittee working on this. And there's two types. One is a liberated, woke curriculum. One is called a constructive or a more conservative curriculum. Mm-hmm. The good thing to know about Temecula is the majority of our community are conservative. They have traditional family values. So me and Jen are going to put forth with the work of the district. We have amazing people helping us. A conservative ethnic studies curriculum that is good for the kids. And just to let everybody know, do we have to? No. AB 101 is very clear on the last line. Unless you get state funding for this, you don't have to. But we're taking the initiative saying, if kids want to learn about their culture and heritage and where they come from, we're all for it. Just no wokeism involved. So That's something that's on the back burner for me and Jen. And I believe we're going to have such a good course that other districts are going to want to grab it.
I love it. Joseph Komrosky, thank you so much for what you do for kids. Thank you for being on Say What podcast. I'm so grateful for you and for your time today.
Thank you, Madison. Pleasure being on.
All right. Well, this is Madison Miner with Protect Our Kids podcast. Please come and join us next time. We have a website, pok.org. Please feel free to email me at madison@pok.org if you have more information that you want to share and if you want your voice to be heard. And we have social media outlets. We have a YouTube channel. We have a website. So please come and check us out. We have ways that you can get involved as a parent, and we have ways that you can advocate to protect your kids. Thank you, and see you next time.